January 27 readings. Barnabas, the Epistle of Barnabas, chapters 1-3. Greetings to believers. All hail, ye sons and daughters, in the name of our Lord Jesus Christ, who loved us in peace. Seeing that the divine fruits of righteousness abound among you, I rejoice exceedingly and above measure in your happy and honored spirits, because ye have with such effect received the engrafted spiritual gift. Rejoicing in spiritual growth. Wherefore also I inwardly rejoice the more, hoping to be saved, because I truly perceive in you the Spirit poured forth from the rich Lord of love. Your greatly desired appearance has thus filled me with astonishment over you. Sharing wisdom with joy. I am therefore persuaded of this and fully convinced in my own mind, that since I began to speak among you, I understand many things, because the Lord hath accompanied me in the way of righteousness. I am also on this account bound by the strictest obligation to love you above my own soul, because great are the faith and love dwelling in you, while you hope for the life which he has promised. Purpose of the letter. Considering this, therefore, that if I should take the trouble to communicate to you some portion of what I have myself received, it will prove to me a sufficient reward that I minister to such spirits, I have hastened briefly to write unto you, in order that, along with your faith, you might have perfect knowledge. The Lord's teachings. The doctrines of the Lord, then, are three: the hope of life, the beginning, and the completion of it. For the Lord hath made known to us by the prophets both the things which are past and present, giving us also the first fruits of the knowledge of things to come. Call to reverence. Seeing these things accomplished one by one, we ought with greater richness of faith and elevation of spirit to draw near to him with reverence. I then, not as your teacher, but as one of yourselves, will set forth a few things by which, in present circumstances, ye may be rendered the more joyful. The Jewish sacrifices are now abolished. Since, therefore, the days are evil, and Satan possesses the power of this world, we ought to give heed to ourselves and diligently inquire into the ordinances of the Lord. Fear and patience, then, are helpers of our faith, and long-suffering and continence are things which fight on our side. While these remain pure in what respects the Lord, wisdom, understanding, science, and knowledge rejoice along with them. God's rejection of sacrifices. For he hath revealed to us by all the prophets that he needs neither sacrifices, nor burnt offerings, nor oblations, saying thus, What is the multitude of your sacrifices unto me, saith the Lord? I am full of burnt offerings, and desire not the fat of lambs, and the blood of bulls and goats, not when ye come to appear before me, for who hath required these things at your hands? Tread no more my courts, not though ye bring with you fine flour. Incense is a vain abomination unto me, and your new moons and Sabbaths I cannot endure. The new law of Jesus Christ. He has therefore abolished these things, that the new law of our Lord Jesus Christ, which is without the yoke of necessity, might have a human oblation. And again he says to them, Did I command your fathers, when they went out from the land of Egypt, to offer unto me burnt offerings and sacrifices? But this rather I commanded them, Let no one of you cherish any evil in his heart against his neighbor, and love not an oath of falsehood. A pleasing sacrifice. We ought therefore, being possessed of understanding, to perceive the gracious intention of our Father, for he speaks to us, desirous that we, not going astray like them, should ask how we may approach him. To us, then, he declares, a sacrifice, pleasing, to God is a broken spirit, a smell of sweet savor to the Lord is a heart that glorifieth him that made it. A warning against deceit. We ought therefore, brethren, carefully to inquire concerning our salvation, lest the wicked one, having made his entrance by deceit, should hurl us forth from our true life. Augustine. Confessions, Book 1, chapter 30-31. The sins of childhood. These were the customs in the midst of which I, unhappy boy, was cast, and on that arena, I was more fearful of committing a barbarism in my speech than of the sin of envying others who had not. These things I declare and confess unto thee, my God, for I was applauded by those whom I sought to please, not realizing the depth of the infamy into which I had fallen, hidden from thy sight. What was more infamous in thy eyes than my actions, Lord? Deceiving both tutors and parents with innumerable lies, driven by a love of games, frivolous spectacles, and a restless desire to imitate what I saw on stage. I stole from my parents' cellar and table, enslaved by gluttony or to bribe other boys who sold me their play. Even in my games, I sought dishonest victories, driven by a vain desire for preeminence. Yet, What could I so little endure as those very sins I inflicted on others? When caught, I preferred to quarrel rather than yield. Is this the innocence of childhood? Nay, Lord. I entreat thy mercy, O my God. For these same sins, as we grow older, are transferred to the adult world, to magistrates and kings, to wealth and power, while the punishments also grow harsher. Yet it was the stature of childhood that thou didst approve as an emblem of humility when thou saidst, of such is the kingdom of heaven. The wonder of existence. But yet, O Lord, to thee, most excellent and most good, the architect and governor of the universe, thanks are due, even hadst thou willed that I should not survive my boyhood. For even then, I existed, I lived, and I felt, caring for my well-being, a trace of that most mysterious unity from which I had my being. Through my inner sense, I kept watch over the wholeness of my senses. Even in these insignificant pursuits and thoughts, I delighted in truth. I despised deception, possessed a vigorous memory, was blessed with speech, cherished friendship, avoided sorrow and ignorance. How wonderful and praiseworthy was the being thou created in me! Yet, in my sin, I sought not thee but the pleasures, honors, and truths found in thy creatures, myself and others, falling instead into sorrow, trouble, and error. Gratitude and preservation. Thanks be to thee, my joy, my pride, my confidence, my God, thanks be to thee for thy gifts. But preserve them to me, for in preserving them, thou preservest me. May the gifts thou hast given me be perfected and developed, that I might be holy with thee, for from thee comes my being. Aquinas. The Infinity of God, Part 1, Question 7, Article 1. Whether God is infinite. I answer that all the ancient philosophers attribute infinitude to the first principle, as is said, Phys. 3, and with reason, for they considered that things flow forth infinitely from the first principle. But because some erred concerning the nature of the first principle, as a consequence they erred also concerning its infinity, forasmuch as they asserted that matter was the first principle, consequently, they attributed to the first principle a material infinity to the effect that some infinite body was the first principle of things. We must consider, therefore, that a thing is called infinite because it is not finite. Now matter is in a way made finite by form, and the form by matter. Matter indeed is made finite by form, inasmuch as matter, before it receives its form, is in potentiality to many forms, but on receiving a form, it is terminated by that one. Again, form is made finite by matter, inasmuch as form, considered in itself, is common to many, but when received in matter, the form is determined to this one particular thing. Now matter is perfected by the form by which it is made finite, therefore infinite is attributed to matter, has the nature of something imperfect, for it is as it were formless matter. On the other hand, form is not made perfect by matter, but rather is contracted by matter, and hence the infinite, regarded on the part of the form not determined by matter, has the nature of something perfect. Now being is the most formal of all things, as appears from what is shown above, Q. 4, a. 1, obj. 3. Since therefore the divine being is not a being received in anything, but he is his own subsistent being as was shown above, Q. 3, a. 4, it is clear that God himself is infinite and perfect. Summary. Aquinas explains that God's infinity comes from his perfect and self-subsistent nature. Unlike created things, which are finite because they are limited by form and matter, i.e. not simple, God is not received in anything else but exists as pure being, ins purum. This makes him necessarily both infinite and perfect, surpassing all limitations. Many, if not all the essential attributes of God such as this are founded on God's simplicity. If God is simple, he is necessarily these things, which include the infinite being, ins infinitum.